you've got to keep the intensity up if you're the Cubs, because it took all of this, right? It took all of this 16-3 just to get back to this, right? Just to get back to this. So now that they're close to even again, they've got to keep the pressure on, right?
Hey, who says Mondays have to suck, Mick Gillespie? Mondays are great when the Chicago Cubs are 16-3 over their last 19 games. They are a game and a half out of the National League Central playoff race. We are talking all things Chicago Cubs and all good things right now as they take down some good competition in the Atlanta Braves. 2 of 3 over the weekend at Wrigley Field. Again, Chuck Walter, Mick Gillespie with you. This is Cubs Baseball Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. Also, throw us a comment if you can. Once we reach 1,000 subscribers, we're going to have a special way to deliver this Ryan Sandberg autographed baseball as Mick goes into his treasure trove and does not pull out a deli meat per Tony Perkis, but instead he has there it is, the Rhino Hall of Fame autograph ball that is going to one lucky fan. We're going to tell you how you can win it, but first things first, send it to your friends so we get to that 1,000 subscriber threshold and we go from there. How you doing today, my man? Happy Monday.
Hey, what do you say, man? I'm telling you what, this is Cubs baseball at its best, man. I mean, you mentioned it, 16-3 in their last 19 games, an 8-game winning streak in there. We didn't know if it was are they just going to beat up on the doormats, the Cardinals and the White Sox, who have had a season that looked just as weak as Tim Anderson's chin the other night, right? Oh, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? But no. They came in and they took care of business against the Reds. They took care of business against the Braves. And this team is rolling, man.
They haven't lost a series in a month. They're tied for third in the NL wildcard spot right now. And they just took down Cincinnati. They took 3 of 4. They were way behind Cincinnati by the All-Star break. And now you look at them, they are tied and only chasing the Milwaukee Brewers, who don't seem to have the hitters to compete right now. When we get that head-to-head matchup later in the month, it's going to be incredible. But let's talk about this upcoming road trip for the Chicago Cubs at New York. They have the Mets, and then it's up to Toronto for a little series with the Blue Jays. How crucial is this road trip, and what can this Cubs team – double barrel question, damn it. Let's go with this one. What can this Cubs team teach you that you don't already know about them?
Well, look, I mean, you mentioned the standings, and the first thing is that this team's in the mix. I mean, they're right there. They're only a game and a half back of Milwaukee. They've caught Cincinnati. Their best pitchers on the IL right now, Marcus Stroman, and this team is still surging along. And really, it has been a thing of beauty. I'll tell you the things that I've learned about the team are, first off, that Dansby Swanson is a leader. And when he's on the field, this is a different club. He's fantastic. His defense is great. His leadership, he hits the ball well. He is worth every dollar that they paid him. That was a great signing in the offseason. The second thing is that Cody Bellinger is back, baby. I mean, he is back. He was the NL Player of the Month, and he just comes up with big hits when you need him. I mean, he has just been so amazing, and he gives the Cubs that star power that you need to be able to make a run in the playoffs, right? But there's been a lot of different contributors on this team besides those two guys. But I really feel like the success of the team kind of sits there. I love Ian Happ and the fact that he's been there for a long time and his quiet leadership. But David Ross has said with Seiya Suzuki, you're going to be on the bench until you get it figured out. We're all about winning right now. That's going to make Seiya a better player, but that's also going to make the Cubs a better team. And how about Candelario? I mean, how awesome is it to see him on the corners, the way that he's not only come in and hit, but he plays defense and he's fit right in with this team. So there's a lot of good right now with the Cubs.
Look, these are two teams coming up in the Mets and Toronto that aren't necessarily killing it in their division. I think it's safe to say that the Toronto Blue Jays at this point are a lot tougher task than the New York Mets, but New York's still got some talent on the team. They dished away Scherzer and Verlander, but they still have some expensive contracts here and there and some younger players that are coming up through the system right now. Does this team scare you at all? Or are they just a team that on paper makes you a little nervous?
Well, I mean, the thing you got to remember about baseball is you really, and we say this a lot in sports, but you really do throw the records away from series to series. How will the Cubs match up at the Mets? You saw the Mets as sellers at the deadline. I think this was the right year, by the way, if you want to rebuild your farm system. The Cubs' best minor leaguer, and you guys can check out the video on the channel. He's the next phenom coming, Pete Crow Armstrong. When the Cubs fleeced the Mets with Javi Baez rental.
And we have two of them. We have two of those videos. We have one with Tim Wilkin that you did, the prospect profile, because he scouted him, longtime Cubs director of scouting. And then we also have a video of the two of us talking because you've done your own scouting on him as well. So be sure to check out those videos.
Yeah, but the Mets went out and they were able to kind of rebuild their farm system with trades, right? With that said, the pitching isn't going to be anything like it would have been about a month ago. But these are still tough series. Look, you've got to keep the intensity up if you're the Cubs, because it took all of this, right? It took all of this, 16-3, just to get back to this, right? Just to get back to this. So now that they're close to even again, they've got to keep the pressure on, right? So I think it's a tough series. And then you mentioned the Toronto. The tough thing about the Blue Jays is that they're a really good team. They have young stars and, players that have emerged as some of the faces of the game. The problem is they're in the AL East, and they're trying to tangle with the Orioles and Tampa Bay, who are amazing teams this year, are way over 500, right? And so, even at third place in that division would be first place in a lot of other stops in the AL or even in the NL, including the Cubs division, the Central. So this series for the Cubs means a lot as far as just like continuing the things that they've done well. They're going to have to pitch a little bit better because, giving up like 6 runs a game, you don't normally win. But when you score 9, you do, right? Or whatever it is, they're going to have to probably get that total down a little bit. But I'm not arguing with success.
Yeah, in the AL East, Blue Jays are right in the middle of the pack right now. An off day in the AL East is a trip to Fenway Park. So that's never easy. If they were in the AL Central with the Twins and the Guardians, they'd be in first place by a long shot, looking like a playoff-bound team. So it is a first-place team that just happens to be in a funky division right now that is an absolute wagon of a gauntlet of a task. So Javier Assad enters the starting rotation on Saturday. Is that something that you potentially see for the foreseeable future, or was that just a little spot start to get their ducks in a row while Stroman heals up?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to figure out who's going to fill into that spot. And what you hope is that with some off days coming, that Stroman will heal up quick from the hip, and then he'll be back out there again as sharp as he was in the beginning of the year when he looked like a Cy Young contender, right? But I like Javier Assad. He's, I think, a future starter in this rotation. We talked about it before. We weren't sure if it was going to be Hayden or Assad, and it turned out to be Assad. And you know what? That's good. I thought he did an okay job. Could have been better. But those opportunities are going to be there until Stroman's ready. And really, you need like more than just a 5-man rotation. You need 6 or 7 or 8 different guys to be able to fill in when you need it. It'd be double headers and, stretches where there's not a lot of off days and injuries and all that stuff. So it wasn't Javi's best start, but he did a nice job to keep the Cubs in it, and they eventually won the game. So I think that, depending on the health of the rest of the rotation, for right now, he's just a spot guy, but I think eventually he's going to be in the rotation permanently.
All right, you ready for one of the greatest segues in Cubs baseball channel history? For breakfast this morning, we're cutting back on the calories, so I have a little double shake and espresso. For your breakfast, how'd a little crow taste this morning? Did you fry it up with your eggs?
I love it, man. I'll eat crow all day long. I was all about the sell at the deadline. And I'm going to tell you why. It's first off, the Cubs showed, really little life up until they got things turned around on this streak, right? And the market is a market that allowed the Mets. I think the Mets rebuilt their farm system, and so did the Cardinals, by being sellers this particular cycle, just because there wasn't a lot of other sellers out there. And there's a lot of teams that feel like they're in the mix. And so you had to give up a very high ransom to get players to help your roster. And I wanted the Cubs to do that. But who could have seen this coming? And I just applaud the players because they made this happen. This was all them.
It was a revolt. It
was a revolt that they led themselves. When Dansby Swanson came back from injury, everything just clicked. They're so solid up the middle with him and Nico at second base. Bellinger is back to being MVP Bellinger again. There's been so many times where Ian Happ has done little or big things to help this club win. The catching has been very solid, smart guys that know how to catch, defensively, call games, frame pitches. And it doesn't matter who seems to be behind the plate. They're doing a good job. The bullpen's been reliable. The starting pitching, including Justin Steele's been very good. And even working through Marcus Stroman's injury, the Cubs have been able to win a lot of games. So, with that said, I'm eating the crow. They made the right call by adding at the deadline. I like the way that this team looks right now. And for the first time this season, and it's not just because I look on there and say, hey, you know what, their chances to make the playoffs are over 50% for the first time, right, in a long time, 53.1% now to make the playoffs. They're a 34% chance to win the division. So these are really significant changes from, a few Tuesdays ago where they were the 13% chance to make the playoffs and really had no chance to win the division. So it's really exciting. This is why you follow a team, is that you want to see them click like this. And so Dansby Swanson's been the leader. I ate crow on it, and I'm glad that they have been able to do this and that their playoff odds are getting better, and they're a formidable team. You beat Atlanta. Look, you beat Atlanta in a series.
That's a juggernaut. Yeah.
I mean, that team is really good.
So Cubs above 50%, as you mentioned. There's two groups of people in this world that I believe are time travelers. The people that wrote The Simpsons, that's a fact, and the people in Vegas. So the fact that the people in Vegas right now have it at a coin flip that this team makes the playoffs in some way, shape, or form is incredible considering where they were just a couple of weeks ago. Chasing Milwaukee, does that Brewers team scare you? And I know a lot of it, they control their own destiny at this point. If they keep winning, it doesn't matter how much they scare you head to head. They're still going to win the division because there's only so many games with them left. But as we mentioned, it was at 13 before the Red Series. They played 4. So I believe it's at 9 games remaining with the Brewers and the Reds. So plenty of chances for the Cubs down the stretch to take care of business and get themselves in the driver's seat, the catbird seat, as we like to call it.
I like to call it the catbird seat. And look, I think that Milwaukee's very beatable. And St. Louis is very beatable. They have good players. The Reds scare you with some of their young talent. But what's happening is as baseball is making adjustments to some of these guys, including De La Cruz, those guys are going to have to make adjustments to the game. This isn't an easy game, right? And when I look at Milwaukee, I see a team that can pitch, that wins games. But you know what? Nothing that overpowers you. And the fact that they've let the Cubs get back into this mix is really unbelievable to me. But when you look at it right now, the Cubs have won 7 of 10, and both Milwaukee and Cincinnati have lost 7 of 10. And so the Cubs are winning and making up ground every single day. And they're also tied right now for the 3rd wild card spot. So the Cubs are right there. But the Cubs are a scary team. And I'll tell you, it's something that Patrick Mooney said when he was on with us last week from The Athletic and the Cubs beat writer in Chicago. He said, this is a really serious team. And he didn't mean serious as in like, yeah, they're a serious contender. He meant that they take showing up to the ballpark every day serious, that these guys really care about the professionalism that it takes to be successful day in and day out.
And it's because, I mean, think of their two leaders, aside from Bellinger, Dansby Swanson, pretty serious guy. And another one who's really serious is Ian Happ. I had the chance to interview him when, he had just got called up to the bigs. He was a Cincinnati Bearcat. I was all fired up to talk Bearcats with him and thought maybe he'd have a more personality that aligned to mine. And he was just a very serious, stoic, even-keeled, not really rah-rah, but leadership through the way that he plays. And it's apparent by how this team is. And he said that Patrick said that Cody's breezy confidence was rubbing off on everyone. And when you see Dansby and Cody in the lineup at the same time, that's been hit or miss a lot of this year, it's a completely different team. Look at their record when they're in the lineup.
Yeah, look, you can't replace Dansby Swanson. And that was the thing when they signed them that I just didn't get. Because Atlanta just pops another shortstop in and they win, right? Most teams would lose someone like Dansby Swanson and take a big step backwards. But you know what? The Cubs have taken a big step forward, and they're lucky to have him. It's more than what he does at the plate, and sometimes we get so stuck on stats, which he's a great hitter. And I mean, he's had during the streak some of the biggest hits, including some long home runs, right? But it's what he does in the field, the way that he captains the team. You talk about the leadership that and the confidence that Bellinger brings, but Swanson just delivers this unbelievable sense of confidence and winning. And he's won a World Series, so he knows what it takes to get there, and it is translated to this team. I think the Cubs are a really dangerous team right now.
All right, heck of a show today, Mick. We are in the California studio today, not in Chicago for the next couple of weeks. So you'll have to deal with the fake tree in the background. Maybe I'll get a poster of some sort. Recommendations in the comments. If you have any sort of, I was thinking maybe like a Jack Bauer, just damn it, poster or something to throw in the corner. This Mick, glad we were able to get a show in. And remember, like, subscribe, comment, and share with your friends. That's the biggest thing. Once we get to 1,000, there it is. The Ryan Sandberg Autograph Baseball. Talk to you tomorrow, Mick.
Hey, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. And like he said, got the ball right here. Like, subscribe, and share, and go Cubs.